Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Thomas back at you with another video. Today we're going to be talking about credit scores. This one might end up being a little bit longer of a video than usual. We'll see. But I do want to get as much content out to you guys as possible, especially with credit cards. You know, it's something I'm very comfortable with, something I like to talk about. So I like to push that information out there whenever I can. Um, Also, I apologize for the lack of videos recently. Just been having a lot with work lately, so sometimes I just get back at the end of the day and I'm out of energy to record. But I promise you guys that I am doing my best to get these out as often as I can to you, because I do enjoy talking about finance and I do enjoy talking about these various topics, whether it's me giving advice on credit cards or giving a rant about Dave Ramsey. But I do enjoy doing this, so I promise you that I am working as proficiently as possible in order to get all of these out to you. Either way, today I want to talk about credit score. And what I intend to talk about is the things that impact it the most. So to do this, I'm going to use Experian's website. This is they are good. They're a good site, and I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. None of them are telling me one way or another how I should present to them. However, Experian is a good site. I personally use Credit Karma as well as my banking app, which gives me the ability to look at my FICO score. Now, for those of you that don't know, there are three major credit scores. There's your TransUnion, your Equifax, and your FICO. Your biggest one is your FICO score. That's what a majority of companies look at when it comes to giving you loans and approving interest rates. So that's going to be your big one. And not to count out Equifax or TransUnion, those are important as well. But I will say FICO is like the biggest one, and that's why a lot of services offer for you to look at it or to give you the service to see it when you want to. So if you don't know what your FICO score is, my first piece of advice would be to find a way to do that. So like I said, I'm able to do it through my banking app, and that comes at no expense to me. That comes at no issue with my credit. So if you're able to get that into your banking app somehow, I highly encourage you to do it. If it's not built into your banking app, sometimes it's built into various credit card apps. I know that Discover does do it with a lot of their apps. And if you don't have Discover, then I would point you to this website right here, which is the Experian website. There you can set up an account and look at your FICO score. It's a good idea to know what your score is. It changes, well, it has the possibility to change once a month. Now, usually that does not happen unless you either make a tremendous change to your credit status, or you just, for some reason or another, usually it's not common for it to fluctuate all that much. Now, that is unless you go ahead and do the things that are listed here. So without further ado, I'm going to start going through their list. Now, they list 5 things that impact your score. I am going to mention a 6th one, which impacts your Equifax and TransUnion. I'm not sure if it impacts your FICO. However, since all 3 bureaus communicate with each other, it should still have a negative impact. So I'm going to mention all 6. And obviously, each of these, you want to follow them, because this is what keeps your credit score in good health. This is what helps it grow. This is what helps you reach that 800 range. Okay, so the first thing is payment history. Now, there's a lot to be said about paying your bills on time. And this is like one of the big things with a lot of people is, they don't consider the importance of paying their credit card bill on time. If you don't pay your credit card bill on time, you will have to pay the APR on that card. Now, with some cards, it doesn't necessarily carry over, but a lot of cards, if you don't pay the APR. You're stuck paying interest on all your purchases from there on out. And a lot of these cards, they have great benefits, but in return, they have a really high APR. We're talking almost close to 30% for some cards. With a lot of cards are in the 19 to 30% ballpark range. There's a few that are a bit lower. Anything higher than 30% is not very common. And if you do have a card with that, it's probably time to get a different card. But I personally don't look at APR as well because I pay my bills on time. That's never been a concern for me. And this is a reason why a lot of people, such as Dave Ramsey, oppose using a credit card because, it can charge you interest on it. If you pay your bills on time, you can get away with not worrying about an APR. Now, payment history. So it says on here, they give ratios of how much of an impact it has on your score. I can neither confirm nor deny since I'm not sure entirely how FICO is decisive about what they want to do with their scoring. What I do know is, so essentially how Credit Karma breaks it down. And I like Credit Karma. I like how they have a layout. They have a pretty good database as far as you can see, like kind of your history and what it is you got going on. So if you don't have a Credit Karma account, I do recommend getting one just so you can see these things. And also it gives you the ability to apply for cards through their service. And you can see which cards you have a better eligibility for based on your current score. Now, obviously do your research. Don't just base it off what a website tells you per se, but it can give you some insight. So payment history. Generally, you're in the green area. You're good when you are making 98% or more of your payments on time, which means you can miss one or two, but ideally we don't miss our payments. So that's the thing. If you are making your payments with a 98% efficiency, it won't have a drastically negative effect on your score, but it won't be positive. You keep that at 100%. That's a really big thing because part of having a card is the company sees you as a liability, and you paying that on time is what keeps you in good standing. It's what increases your credit limit. It's what makes your score go up. So pay that bill on time. Okay, so the next thing is the amount you owe. This ties into payments. So companies prefer that you do not spend more than 30% of your credit limit. And so what I mean by that is each different card that you have will have a credit limit set. And, sometimes it's $500. It can range all the way up to $10,000. And some of them will go even farther if you're like in that really high elite category where they don't care how much you spend because they know you'll pay them. But here's the thing. Suppose you have a $5,000 credit limit. They ideally do not want you spending more than $1,500 per month on that card without paying it off. Because again, that's seen as risk. So if you are borrowing a higher amount of money per month, they don't necessarily have that guarantee that you're going to pay it. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, you are one way or another, but they want you to pay it on time. And so where it comes back to bite you is, sure, you can be given a $5,000 credit limit, but if you're spending $1,500 plus, you are now exceeding their preferred utilization of your card. So 30% is the maximum that you should be spending on it. I like to keep mine within a 10% limit. So 30%, you're okay. But if you keep it under that 10%, that's a much more favorable position. It shows that you are conservative with your spending, and it shows that you do not frivolously spend either. You don't essentially waste their money, and you don't put them in a position where they're out thousands of dollars and you may or may not pay that bill. They're willing to loan out less money if they can. And so if you're able to keep your utilization at 10% or less, it will have a really big impact on your score. Okay, so the third thing is credit history length. So this one's a little bit more tricky. Essentially, to start off, this is a lose-lose situation for you as a user. So generally, your score improves over time. And this is partially because it's history. If you have these accounts for a longer amount of time, if you just have been investing for a longer amount of time with these companies, it shows that you are a more credit-worthy client. So you have that reliability behind you. So it starts counting at about 2 years, and then it kind of goes in increments, 2, 4, 6. And I believe after 10 years of credit history is when you're in like the gold standard for them, assuming you did everything else right. If you hold 10 years worth of good credit history, then, or even just history in general, it shows that you, well, for one, exist, but for two, that you're continuously investing with them and you have that credit history. So a lot of times what happens is people can have good credit scores. I myself consider, like, I think I have a decent credit score. I have a score in the mid 700s. And the thing though is I don't have a lot of history, and that impacts it. So I've told the story before, like when I went to go buy my car, I got it at an interest rate of 4%, partially because of my score was good, but I was signing for it by myself, but I didn't have that history behind it. And so they couldn't necessarily verify that I was worthy of a lower interest rate because I lacked that history. I didn't have what it took. Well, I wouldn't say I didn't have what it took. I mean, I know I had what it took, but to them, they had no proof of that. And so after 2 years of owning a credit card, that will start to go up and start having a positive influence. But before that, you're kind of just in a tough spot. There's nothing you can really do about it. Just keep that account open. Don't close your account before that time frame is over. Keep your accounts open. That's the thing people don't realize is when you close an account, that negatively impacts your score. Now, if you're going to close one, you should have another one open or one that you intend to open, because you have to understand that you are investing with this company. They lose money when you close that account. So don't close it. Keep it open, especially if it's your oldest line of credit. Now, if it's a loan, that's just, that's how it is. But if it's a credit card, and actually this only applies to credit cards, don't close that account prior to you having some history behind yourself, because otherwise it's going to start eating away at your score in a negative way, and you don't want that. It's an easy mistake that you can avoid. Okay, so the next thing they list is credit mix, and this is basically the amount of the variety you have within your credit history. So a lot of people don't have a ton of variety. There's only so much you can get, but essentially, the common ones are auto loans, credit cards, mortgages, student loans, financing loans, whatever it is. It's loans. As long as you show you're paying those things on time and you are proficiently making, you have like a variety of accounts. You don't all have one, you have multiple ones. Then, it shows that multiple agencies consider you trustworthy to lend to. It's all about, it's essentially a trust game of, okay, if XYZ approves of you, then I think I'm okay with approving of you. But if someone else, if you only have one person that approved, but then you don't have a lot of other variety, it doesn't necessarily look as favorable. Now, this one is not the biggest impactor. Variety is not necessarily a big key. Now, it lists at 10% of your FICO score. I could disagree with that. I think variety is good. I think it's good for the bureaus because they see that. And, if they see multiple people are willing to lend to you, they might be willing to extend your line of credit, give you more spending, which is good. But at the same time, a loan is a loan. And as long as you have those loans coming in, if people are willing to loan to you, it positively impacts your score. Okay, so the next one, number 5, is new credit. This is the amount of accounts you've opened slash hard inquiries. So the amount of accounts you've opened kind of goes in line with the credit mix. You want to have ideally 10 different lines of credit, 10 different loans. And so, you know, that is what they start seeing as like a positive thing. If you have 10 different borrowed points, like these can be just things you borrow. These are like student loans. Like for me, I borrow a loan every semester, or I take out a loan, I mean, every year, but it comes in a semester. So it's like basically 2 per year. And so positive, so that positively like reinforces, and goes back to what I was saying before, is if you have enough of a, if you have enough people willing to loan to you, it's going to positively impact your score. So, but here's the kicker to this. There's this thing called hard inquiry. And essentially, what a hard inquiry is when a credit bureau has your information requested. And this comes with personal loans. This does not get pulled up with student loans, but this gets pulled up when you take out a mortgage, when you take out an auto loan, applying for a credit card. And this is the thing people need to realize. When you apply for a credit card, every time, unless they say somewhere in their terms and conditions that they will not be pulling it up, your score will be pulled up. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. And here's the thing. Your score is in good standing in a positive sense if you have 2 hard inquiries on your account. And so if your score is pulled up 3 times in a year, it's not a bad thing, but it might have a negative impact, like a little bit. It's not a terrible thing. Like ideally, you know, you want to keep it 3, 4 max. I don't encourage any more than 3. I've had 3 before, and I've never had necessarily a bad experience. I recently just had one of mine drop off, so now I'm down to 2, and that caused my score to go up because 1 to 2 is considered their green zone. So when people apply for a credit card, they will pull this score up, and this will show on your history. So if you get rejected for a card you applied for, find out if they pulled up your information. Don't go apply for another one until you know how many you have on your account. It takes 2 years for a hard inquiry to drop off your account. So if you pulled up your account and it shows, oh, you have 3 hard inquiries, look at the dates, see what the estimated time is when they might be dropped. If you had it looked up back in 2018, well, it's probably gone by now. If you pulled it up this year, you're stuck with it till 2023. There's really no way around that one, as far as I know. So don't just go applying for credit cards willy-nilly and then not realizing what it is, who's looking at your account, who's pulling it up, because they will. They have to, and they're gonna. And the credit bureaus essentially charge you for this by putting an inquiry on your account because they're inquiring about your information, so they have to send that out to them. So make sure that you're not exceeding those limits. Don't go applying left and right for cards and loans if you don't know where you stand in that sense. Because the last thing you need is to have 5 hard inquiries on your account, and then you need to actually borrow money and you can't get approved, or you get approved with a really high interest rate because you've already had it pulled up so many times. So just this is all part of being aware. And this is why I encourage you to get onto these sites such as Credit Karma and Experian to find out exactly what it is that's going on with your score. You need to know these details. This is important. Okay, so the last one, they don't list it here, and it's not as common per se. It's called a derogatory mark. And essentially what derogatory marks are is it's in a sense debt collectors, more or less. So if you have debt collector claims on your account, or if you file bankruptcy, I believe court fines also fall under it. Basically, if you are owing money in a sense in a way that is not through your credit score, if it's put on your public record, that will negatively impact your score. You do not want these. These are not good, all right? One of these is considered bad. Don't. Now, obviously, I can't speak for everyone's situation because everybody has different circumstances. You know, not everything is as simple as we'd like it to be. So everybody owes debt for various reasons. But make sure you understand what it is you're getting into if you are going to be taking on a derogatory mark, because it only takes one for your credit score to take a hit. And so just avoid them at all costs. And again, they also typically stay on about 2 years. So don't go filing bankruptcy multiple times in a year and then having that show up in your public score. Now, obviously, there's a whole legal conversation behind that. Who is complacent with it and who does that fall under? But these are things that if you are taking on these essentially red flags for the companies, for the credit companies, these don't go away quickly. They stick around. This is not something you can essentially have put up and be like, okay, it's not going to be a problem next year. It's going to be a problem next year. It's going to be something you have to stick around. So be aware of what it is that's going to be causing these impacts on your score. Okay, and so yeah, that's going to conclude this video. I hope you found it useful. I apologize if I came kind of stressed in there. I sometimes just let it get to my head, but I do encourage you all to try to look into your credit scores, see what it is that's being impacted, get on Credit Karma, find out if you can see your FICO score from your app. If anything, I encourage you to know what your FICO score is, if anything at all. That's your biggest score. You want to know what that is. You want to see how it's been moving, try to get an understanding of how your credit's working. And so you can do that through Experian right here, possibly through your banking app or through your credit card app. All right, everyone. I hope you have a good one. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you want more content like this. I'll be back at you with a new video very soon. Have a great one.